This band of metal sex nuns makes quite the visual impact, but is their music as striking as their imagery? Let's think about that. Hey everybody, I'm Wayne, your metal professor, and we're taking a deep dive into Dogma's debut album. More intro after we get to the first cut.
Sacred figures all around, but there's only one that attracts me.
Forbidden Zone. This is a dramatic opener. It begins with a series of minor piano chords augmented by synthesizer and what sound like strings, but it's probably more synthesizer. Once the guitar and the verse pattern of the synth kick in, we hear immediately this is a metal cut. And I'll tell you that synth work is a masterstroke of complementary instrumentation. It adds a lot of spice. Delivering the intro section, lead vocalist Lilith shows an impressive range and a really impressive amount of control over her voice. She imbues that intro section with a real sense of poignancy.
Is what God wants, and that's what I wanna be.
Lilith shows an instinct for altering her vocal delivery for maximum impact and maximum effectiveness. Guitarist Lamia gives us a really nice mid-song lead break, and Forbidden Zone's final 90 seconds or so are just spectacular. There's a great bridge into the final chorus, and Lilith's vocals jump up an octave at exactly the right moments. Now, lyrically, here we get the beginning of a story that runs through the entire album. A young woman is a novice at the convent, and she's struggling with whether to stay the course, take her vows of chastity and poverty and obedience, or whether to embark on a journey of her own, a journey of sensual and other self-discovery. Yes, this is a concept album, but unlike many concept albums, you don't have to listen to all the cuts in exactly the album order. Any song can be removed from that context, and it works just fine on its own. And just in case a listener misses a big point of the opening song, that sound effect at the end of the cut pretty much clues you in. Hey again, thank you so much for choosing this video from the millions you could have chosen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Obviously, I hope you like it. If you do, please consider subscribing, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment. I love those. And by all means, share it. Pass it on to someone else who's looking for some good new metal. Now, there is a lot to say about this quartet of, as I understand it, Colombian ladies, but I could be mistaken about that, who are not remotely the first band named Dogma, but they are unconnected to any of the others. But first, this needs to be said. It's not a slight on anyone's faith to acknowledge that the struggle between religious dictates and individual liberty has been going on for many hundreds of years, and it has proven fertile ground from which for metal to grow. Man, that's a tortured metaphor, isn't it? Anyway, it's no surprise that Dogma comes down squarely on the side of individual liberty. And this is an interesting thing about the band's presentation. If you look at their website, their Facebook page, some of the non-music videos on their YouTube channel, they are really communicating an ethos as well as marketing a band. And if rock and roll is at its best when it's saying something, and it is, this album fits the bill. And I expect I speak for a lot of people when I say that if good old Holy Spirit Catholic Church had had nuns like these, I would have gone to Mass a lot more often. And probably confession too. Feel the Zeal. It's a catchy title and an upbeat song. And the introductory section, the chords, the riffing, the pinched harmonics, even the delivery of the vocals remind me a lot of Dawkins. And we need to say this too. I will make quite a few comments about the lead guitar work through the course of this discussion. But if one is the only guitarist in a band, then one is not just the lead guitarist, but the rhythm guitarist and all the other guitarists as well. And guitarist Lamia is good at it. Check this out. Does that or does that not remind you of George Lynch? It does me. And in fact, the lead break that Lamia gives us at around 250 sounds to me like kind of a restrained George Lynch. Lyrically, the speaker is at home. She is on convent break, as it were. And it's apparently a very strict household, and she complains about being punished whenever she does not live up to her parents' expectations. However, hearing the sound of her parents coupling, our speaker is stirred, and then rather than complaining about punishment, she practically begs for it. Yes, there is a big old BDSM component running through this entire album. And as for the zeal that one is feeling, there's a double meaning there. Of course, there's religious zeal, but our speaker is also starting to experience a zeal for physicality, and she explores this throughout the album. Right, my first peak. This is flat out metal. And Lilith again demonstrates her impressive range and impressive vocal control. Again, keyboards add a lot here. There are some nice layered vocals or group vocals after the second chorus, and we get the best lead break on the album so far. It is so fast and so smooth. Lyrically, our protagonist is back at the convent. She is a novice, and she is exploring her sensuality. She has achieved her first peak, her first climax. But I hear you saying, what about the corn? Yeah, the corn thing. It's a little puzzling, but I think we can figure it out. In Catholic, well, dogma, corn is traditionally associated with fertility and abundance, and of course fertility in general is associated with sensuality and physicality. But what exactly is happening? Is this just the story of a girl and her corn, as so many stories are? I get the impression there is a man involved, but I don't want to tell you specifically what references make me think that, because I really don't want YouTube to demonetize this video, so just listen to the song. You'll get it. Some internet denizens have compared Dogma's image to Ghost's shtick, but I don't think that really works. Oh yeah, the Catholic thing fits, right? But I think Dogma is reaching back a lot farther than Ghost for the inspiration to have 4 distinct personae in the band. And we'll have more to say about this after we explore a couple more songs.
Questioning your God, evil is desire. We are not allowed to play with fire.
Again, straight up metal here in Made Her Mine. And if Lilith does not demonstrate quite the vocal fireworks that she had in the previous cuts, she makes up for it with the sheer richness of her voice. And the climbing notes she provides going into the chorus just sound absolutely great. Now, after the second chorus, if we're going by, traditional metal formula, we would expect a lead break. And we get one, a guitar lead break. And keyboards. But it works. Honestly, I think it's kind of an inspired decision. I've never heard lead guitar and keyboards combined in exactly this way before. And the story of our young protagonist, our young nun in training, continues as she continues to explore her carnal side. But now she is not alone. That's right, hot nun on nun action. And I have notes, but honestly, after that sentence, I don't know what else needs to be said. Carnal Liberation. Now, by this point, we are past being able to say which is the most metal song on the album, as drummer Abrahel hammers us into the main riff with power and a couple of really great fills. And let me pause just for a moment here. Vocalists and guitarists tend to get pretty much all the love in album reviews. Bass players and drummers get significantly less, but it's not because what they do is not important. They just kind of get overlooked because they're holding down the bottom end of the song. Both Nixe on bass and Abrahel on drums do astounding work on this album. A cool interlude after the second chorus takes us into the lead break, and it is a treat. Lamia finally lets go, man, and she has speed, she has clean technique, and just the construction of that entire lead break is really well done. And the story at this point, our novice nun has apparently her first full experience, as suggested by the references to pain and to blood. And, as traditionally happens, her reward is to be excoriated, both verbally and physically. And she leans into that physical punishment. Yes, the BDSM component is back, as though it ever left. Each member of Dogma has a persona, and they've taken it a step farther than Kiss did, by identifying themselves, presenting themselves, using only the names of those personae. Nixe is on bass. In Germanic mythology, a Nixe is a water spirit with the power of song, sometimes used for good, sometimes used for ill. In various European mythologies, the word Nixe appears, and it's always associated with some kind of dangerous supernatural critter. Abrahel is on drums, as mentioned earlier. The name Abrahel is that of a succubus. Succubi in European folklore are demons that look like voluptuous women, and they use their beauty, they use their sensuality to lure men to their doom. I just wanted to say doom like that. I don't really know why. Anyway, specifically the name Abrahel comes from a late 16th century text written by a thoroughly detestable son of a bitch named Nicolas Remy. Remy was a French magistrate, a judge, and he boasted of having sentenced over 800 people for practicing witchcraft to death at the stake by burning. Yeah, this was evil. Lamia is on lead guitar. In Greek mythology, Lamia sometimes is said to be a daughter of the sea god Poseidon. Another story has Lamia as a human woman who falls in love with Zeus, king of the gods, and is punished by Hera, Zeus's jealous wife, and as a consolation prize, Zeus gives Lamia the power to exact bloody revenge, which is, hey, it's what we all want for Christmas, isn't it? And on vocals, we have, of course, Lilith. In Judeo-Christian Apocrypha, Lilith was the name of Adam's first wife, who either left or was kicked out of paradise, and I'm not kidding, for not wanting to do exactly what Adam told her all the time. One story, in fact, says that Lilith left paradise of her own accord because she was tired of being on the bottom. She wanted to be on the top. And whew, man, the fights I've had over that very issue. I don't know. Anyway, Lilith has since passed into legend as a figure of rebellion and power. So what do all these personae have in common? Well, all of them are women. All of them are powerful. All of them have a supernatural connection. And all would have been regarded by medieval Christians as evil and dangerous. Sounds good to me.
Come and taste it. Just follow me and free yourself.
Now we are into the middle section of the album, and this song, at least, has a slightly different flavor than the songs we've heard so far. Free Yourself has a choral beginning, voices singing in Latin. I'd love to tell you what they're saying too, but my Latin has degraded so much.
It says, Romans, go home. No, it doesn't.
The construction of this song is the most varied on the album so far. That choral beginning is followed by a pretty subdued section of ominous instrumentation until the chorus kicks in at about 45 seconds. Then it's back into the lively beat for a little bit until, not kidding, we get an overtly jazzy section. I did not see that coming. This band is not a one-trick pony. There is some serious musical instinct going on here. And in a sense, this is the most interesting track on the album in the way that the lyrics and the music complement each other. The lyrics are about the young woman, right, freeing herself from the dictates of the convent and exhorting others to do the same. At the same time, the music is not held back by standard metal leitmotifs. Leitmotif is just a schmancy word for a motif, right? A pattern that evokes a tone or a mood. So the lyrics and the music both are free, and it's really kind of an impressive bit of songwriting. And yeah, there's some BDSM going on here too.
So it
bare to the bone. Now, the opening sequence here sounds, to me, a little bit like Jump era Van Halen. When the vocals kick in, the beat continues uninterrupted, but the intensity drops a little bit until we get to the chorus. The chorus itself is unusually lengthy, and the riffing and just kind of the way it's constructed remind me again of Dawkins. And as with the previous cut, Free Yourself, in Bare to the Bone, we get a more complex construction than one would usually expect in a metal song. And the bridge, from the second chorus into the lead break, just sounds amazing. And most of that lead break is backed by a kind of stuttering staccato drum beat from Abrahel that kind of reminds me of what Mark Zonder does on the Fates Warning album Perfect Symmetry. This bit ends with more good lead work, bridge, chorus, and more good lead work takes us out of the song. Now, lyrically, this one is a little puzzling because it doesn't seem really necessary to move the story along. But, as we said earlier, you can take any song out of the context of the story and it works just fine. And as for what happens in this story, in short, our speaker, our young heroine, is at the altar and she is joined there. And perhaps joined there, apparently by a priest. Dogma's rollout, the mystery, the imagery, the ethos, the mystery of the band as a whole and the various personae, the way that is maintained across their social media presence and the way that it interacts with the music, I think is just brilliant. Have a look at their website and at their Facebook page. And if you're a metal fan in general, as you almost certainly are if you're watching this video, go to their YouTube channel and watch the 3 short non-music videos called We Are Dogma, parts 1, 2, and 3. And you will hear from dozens of accomplished metal musicians, all saying the same thing: we are Dogma. I mean dozens. You get musicians from Nervosa, Quiet Riot, Rainbow, Firewind, Sirena, Primal Fear, on and on and on. The bands of Tony McAlpine, Joe Satriani, Yngwie Malmsteen, and dozens more. So what is our takeaway here? Well, clearly somebody really wants this band to succeed, and equally clearly, that somebody has connections in the metal community that are deep and wide. But who? Is it the band's management? Is it the record company, MNRK Heavy? Is it the band themselves, or a subset thereof? I do not know, but I would really like to. So if you know, let the rest of us know in the comments section. And if you're not comfortable doing that, by all means, send me an email and we will keep it just between us.
6 where sacrifice, ritual almost done. Food strange and in a cup, as well as mustard's one.
Make Us Proud begins as a relatively low-key song. The introductory guitars remind me quite a bit of the opening to Slow and Easy by Whitesnake, and we get a vocal performance that's unlike anything we have heard so far on the album. The pitch is low, the timbre is rich, and at about 125 we get something that's really unexpected. A male voice primarily delivers the chorus. And I guess that he sings all right, and if one just came upon this song on its own without having heard just Lilith for 7 previous songs, I think it would work. But I have been hearing Lilith for the previous 7 songs, and what a great voice she has. And the male voice kind of kicked me out of this song, and I had quite a time getting back into it. I'm sorry. It's just how I felt. But that having been said, there's a restrained, thoughtful lead break at around 250. That lead break is followed again by the chorus with the primarily male voice, but Lilith is in there too. And we are led out of the song, or something out of the song, by what sounds like wordless choral, but might just be synthesizer that sounds like voices. I can't quite tell for sure. We get references to screams, to sacrifice. There's a reference to the Eucharist. The speaker is said to be with seed. Does this mean she's pregnant? You'll just have to wait and see. The Eucharist that is referred to does not seem to get completed, however, as in the middle of the sacrament, the speaker is spun around for a completely different purpose. I think you get it.
Waking up with a new maid. She said, ready now, they are enslaved.
Another complexly constructed song here. Pleasure from Pain begins with more creepy guitars, keyboards, and a choral section. But at 27 seconds, the riffing begins. And it's not just guitar riffing, it's guitar riffing accompanied by the synth playing the same chords, or at least the same root notes, and throwing in some little synthesizer exclamation points here and there. It actually sounds really cool, like something from a James Bond soundtrack. And the music takes an ominous tone until the vocals begin at 108. And these vocals are, again, not like anything we have heard so far. Lilith is practically spitting out those verses. At 310, we get a pounding lead up to the guitar break, sometimes paired with keyboards. Around 350, though, the keyboards vanish and the lead work sounds a lot like the melody to Forbidden Zone. We end with another screaming iteration of that main chorus line, Pleasure from Pain, and behind the other instruments at the end of the song is something that I cannot quite put my finger on. I know I've heard something a lot like it in some other metal song, but after making notes and listening to the album and working on this damn video for days and days, seriously, you don't want to know how many times I've had to recut this thing. Anyway, I still can't remember what song it's from, so please go to the end of this song, listen to it. If you can identify that thing that's behind the other instruments and tell us what metal song that is from, leave that in the comments. I would really appreciate it. And in terms of the story, we take quite a turn here. Sex and BDSM. Didn't see that coming, did you? Dogma gave us their first offering. Well, that's an appropriate word. In March of 2022. And then there was a long period of silence. And then in late spring 2023, we got several more songs spaced pretty evenly, just a few weeks apart. Now, that first song was Father, I Have Sinned, and we're going to get to that next. But the point I want to make here is that everything Dogma has released, the comments sections are filled with things like, this is great. When will there be an album? Are you going to tour? If you tour, please come to my town, and so forth. But the band was silent on both those topics until just a few weeks ago, when they announced that the album would be available for download on November 17th, which, as of now, there are not vinyl or CD copies of the album, but, maybe we'll get those eventually, I just don't know. And as of the date I'm making this video, no word yet about a tour, but cross your fingers. And now we're back to the straight-ahead metal with Father, I Have Sinned, which, as noted, was the first thing that we heard from Dogma. This is a really accessible tune, yet still with the heaviness and the drama and the aggression that we have come to expect. Lilith's vocals are strong and wicked, the rhythm is pounding, and if the lead work is a little bit sparse here, it's nonetheless clean and clear, and it's put in at exactly the right spots, with some great little guitar exclamation points during the vocal pauses. Now, lyrically, we get the most shocking song on the album so far, as our speaker has really grown right in her confidence, in her physicality. She knows who she is. And she impresses upon her partner, her carnal partner, that there is no invisible, intangible being present that's controlling their actions. Instead, there is someone who is very physical, very tangible, very visible. That is her, of course. And whatever plans God may have for them, she has different ones. And that is the appropriate lead-in to the album's final track. So we are at the final cut of the album, The Dark Messiah, and it is the culmination of everything the album has brought us to expect so far. Heaviness, drama, aggression, blasphemy, gotta throw that in there. And it just all works really well. There's a kind of Eastern-tinged lead break at around 2:46 that includes some really cool, bent, pinched harmonics. They sound great. And the song's final 25 seconds or so? Apocalyptic, complete with thunder. But when it ends, it just ends. And we're kind of left hanging, going, okay, and now what? What happens next? So Dogma has set up their sophomore album here very well. And the climax and ending of our story is that our hero, the young woman sent to a convent at the beginning of the album, is done with that experience, man. She is returning home. She's returning home in triumph and liberty and has freed herself from the physicality-denying creed of being in the convent. And yes, she is pregnant with the Dark Messiah of the song's title. So what's our verdict for this album? Well, I can tell you mine. It's heavy, it's polished, it's complex, it's interesting, it's fun. I just love it. This is the most fun I've had listening to a debut album since Ethos by Voice of Bachapra, which, as you know, if you have seen my review of that, I think it's a really, really good album. I think the Dogma's debut is just as good, albeit in a very different way, very different character. Now, clearly, well, actually, it seems not to be clear to lots of people, so let's just say it now. Ultimate enjoyment of art, whether you're talking about music or, movies or literature or what have you, ultimate enjoyment of art is subjective, right? That means that the truth of it changes from person to person. But I hope that by doing our semi-deep dive and going track by track through this album, I say, we've introduced a little objectivity and so managed to avoid some of the, what's that word? Bullshit that accompanies most music reviews. At the time I'm making this video, there are 3 text reviews of this album online. By the time you see the video, I'm sure there will be many more. But of those 3 reviews, 2 are absolute crap. They're totally not worth reading. They read as though the writer just put the album on in the background while they did something else, and then 10 minutes before their deadline, they scribbled out some general impressions. But the 3rd review is worth reading. Now, does it praise the album as much as I have? Does the writer arrive at sort of all the same conclusions? Is their experience of the album exactly what mine is? Well, no, clearly it's not, but it does not need to be. It's a thoughtful piece. The writer touches on several individual tracks, and it's clear that she or he cares about the review and cares about metal music. So it's a good piece, and I'll put a link to it in this video description. And that's what I've got. Y'all, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please consider subscribing, give it a thumbs up, share it with someone else who needs some new metal in their life, and by all means, come back soon for more cool stuff. You guys are awesome. I'll talk to you soon.